Let's do it. All right. All done? This was like flip, 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 flip.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing programs beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmo on Zero and I, Rachel Burt. Bridget's out a little sick. She's got sicky pants. Anyway, so today we're here to talk with you, at you, in your face, about The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, episode 3 of its second season, titled L'Invisible. So, like the invisible. means the invisible.
All of France is just like
L'Invisible. Yeah, L'Invisible. Which actually, I don't know what that word has to do with the episode.
Really?
Technically. You want to give a stab?
I mean,
it's not clear to me.
I think it's purposely ambiguous. I mean, to be invisible, to feel invisible. My knee-jerk reaction would be Janae, right? Invisible.
Oh, right. Like Mona Lisa.
Right. She was invisible in her, say, life before the apocalypse. In that first...
viewed by millions, seen by no one.
Exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
Exactly. And how much she relates to Mona Lisa. Also...
in her janitor job.
Yep. Also Carol to a certain extent, right? I mean, she portrays an image that what she wants people to see, but her true self is invisible. I think this was a very well-named episode. They either put a lot of thought into it or we're just finding a lot of meaning in it. But I think it was
clearly I didn't see it at all, which is
ironic,
right on point.
Right?
Men don't see it at all.
We could probably go even further and say some other characters looked or felt invisible. I take Sylvie, for example, screaming and shouting through the walls of the castle or whatever, and nobody taking her seriously. Everybody kind of looking right through her
because they're complicit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're sad. That was the one thing that was interesting, was that they're all complicit, but they all see it and they're all sad when it happens. This one woman is crying, just absolutely destroyed from it. But Losang turns it into a beautiful thing.
Of course he does.
And I get it. I actually do get it. Bridget and I were going back and forth about the suffering of the people. And this episode sort of does confirm a little bit further that these people came from everywhere in order to, whether they were in safety, whether they were not in safety, just to be a part of this moment that would relinquish everybody from their suffering. I felt that. I also feel it when Daryl is like, I'm going to kill all of you to get at this kid. I get that too. I don't want people to think that I'm a cuck. I just mean that I try to see the other side of the equation. And I think for you specifically, Rachel, is that there is something to faith. And they do kind of go into this a bit more. Falou kind of has the pièce de résistance near the middle end, where he says the belief is something that helps you get you by, then it is true.
Mm-hmm.
But Losang took it too far. When you try to manifest that belief into something tangible.
Look at cult leaders. They start with good intentions. Sometimes the power is too much and it takes over, and then it morphs into this terrible thing. I don't think Losang is a bad guy. Like a lot of other villains that we've seen on this show, I think he's just misguided. He has absolute blind faith, which sometimes can be detrimental as well, because if there's no room for doubt or questions, then you end up in this situation, right? Like where you think a human can survive a zombie bite? Come on, my dude. No. Dude.
Well, doesn't that make Laurent the most invisible out of this whole equation? Is that you're willing to... It's the pinnacle of objectification. He's more of a thing than he is a person.
He sees him as a symbol and not a person. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I would agrre with that. Mm-hmm.
Mona Lisa, more of a symbol than a person. We didn't see the person. We see her as a symbol.
Right.
She's hiding something. She's a symbol of guile. There must be something behind that smile. Wait, but no, she was a person. She has multitudes.
Was
She's
she,
not
though?
Just a thing.
Was she a person?
We see, but we don't think about it. We really don't think about who she might have been. I mean, many people have thought of who she could have been in Da Vinci's life, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of just give up. There's no paper trail to this person.
Well, there's also
And
been theories that it's just simply the feminine version of Da Vinci. He painted himself as a female.
Oh, that has so much unpacking.
Right?
But in doing so, it is that part of him. Some people call that part of your soul the anima, his female anima.
His
Anima
anima?
meaning, we're not talking about Bridget again.
David!
David!
Stop!
I've stopped. That's all I need to do. Got the punchline. I don't know.
Oy.
It's a part of your soul. It's the expression of your soul.
I like that.
So,
Yeah.
So that
Mhm.
which is
but
great.
again, though, bringing it back, it could be the invisible part of him that he has now made.
Who said your brain wasn't working, you dumb bitch? I say dumb bitch, ironically. Let's say a couple things before we continue and go into first impressions about this episode. One is mainly, obviously, the website. Head over to squawkingdead.com. Check out the refreshed website. It has a whole bunch of cool links that it used to have on the old site, but they're a lot easier to get to. They look a lot clearer, and I think you'll enjoy them. The links to the merch store are easily readable. You click the menu in the top left if you're on a phone, and it pops open and slides open, and it's a cool little thing. It's great. Second thing is we're in a interesting place when it comes to our funds. I'm trying not to be disastrous about it, but we had changed our membership tiers. I haven't said this on the podcast per se. So I've said it kind of near the end, but now I need to kind of say it in the beginning. We're in a precarious position when it comes to our funds. We had to increase our membership tiers, which knocked a whole bunch of people out of certain tiers. And basically not a one has really adjusted their membership tiers. It's a bad place to be in because we're running quickly out of funds. I almost regret the decision to having to raise our funds, but at this point, there's nothing to be helped. So if you thought you were in a membership tier, if you like to continue being a part of a membership tier, don't even consider. Immediately head to ko-fi.com/account, scroll down to member of Squawking Dead, hit the 3 dots on the right, and update your pledge so that you fall back into your tier. If you don't even see that, you have to join a tier because you were knocked out as a result. It really helps the podcast. We're basically down to only 1 week's worth of funds available to pay Veton for this week, and then we're on our own. I have to dig into my pockets to pay for Veton's editing for the next, I think it's now 5 more weeks. That's $500 that we need in the immediate. So please head on over to ko-fi.com/account, check your pledge, update it. If you don't see it, join a tier at ko-fi.com/squawkingdead/tiers and join one of our updated membership tiers, starting with the Walker series at $4 a month. And off you go. You can read all the details up to the Great M tier, which is our producer tier, which may be out of reach for basically everyone, but it's there for folks who really do believe in us and want to see where we're going and want to be a part of, why are they spending money so frivolously? Let me get in there and just tell them what's what. Let me be the accountant.
Come tell us how to spend our money.
Exactly.
Please.
More wisely.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I think it's that our demands have kind of increased. A lot of the costs that we have in our yearly goal have increased by a lot. And the editing is not there. The recent cons that we've attended are not there. They're not quantifiable. They're not on a schedule. So we have just enough for our bills, and we made it, right? We made that, but we didn't make all the stuff that we paid for throughout the year, like hotel expenses at the camp, hotel expenses at Spookala, all the various stickers and stuff that we've bought since then, which on promotional discounts too, by the way, so like $20 a pop here and there, t-shirts that we bought for the hosts and some of the folks who joined a tier at one point and then subsequently fell out of them. So things like that, they're hard to quantify. So if it does definitely look like we surpassed our goal, but technically we spent on a whole bunch of things since then, and we could be using our funds a lot better, but in the meantime, we need to stem this bleed so that we can continue producing this wonderful show that you seem to love. And if you seem to love it, and if you haven't ever joined a tier before, now is a perfect time to do so because, like we've always said at the end of every episode, from the Whisperers tiers up, Whisperers, Survivors, Great M tier, you get a free Classic t-shirt when you sign up. Whisperers themselves get to join our live streams. There's one that's going to be coming up for New York Comic-Con. We're going to be breaking the news live as it appears on our news feed for folks who are behind a desk and who need that information in their ear as they work rather than scrolling Twitter to find out the latest deets that dropped. And for the Survivors and Great M tier, you can join us on screen with Rachel and I today and give us your thoughts on a particular episode. Exactly. And by the way, It doesn't cost anything to join us in the chat as we discuss these episodes. Just continue to follow us on either Ko-fi or Patreon. We post our schedules. We send you reminders when we're going to be recording next. We do have a calendar that's available that is in that pinned post on either Ko-fi and Patreon. And we update that schedule very, very regularly. You will get a notification when we do update those schedules. So consider joining us for free. No payment necessary, but consider helping us out
But
with either
please
tip.
consider, throwing a little bit something our way just so David can pay the bills.
Yep. Doesn't have to dig into his pockets. I'm going to just be open about it. It's a sad state of affairs from when we first started, because when we started, people were very eager to join the highest tier. And now we're just losing so many left and right. You can see it at the credits after every episode on YouTube, and you can listen to it at the end of every episode on the audio podcast, wherever you're listening to it. And it's dwindling down. We've got 4 Whisperers tiers that are actually grandfathered in at the old price that haven't been relinquished. Obviously, the biggest credit that we give at the end of every episode is Ryan on Twitter and X. He has been on it. I say not a one, but he's on Patreon. It's usually the people on Ko-fi. Just nobody's really responded to that change. And so, technically we do not have anybody in any of the tiers, not even the Walkers tier, because they're all stuck at $1. So.
Come on, you guys. We want to keep doing this. If we want to keep doing this at the quality level we are at, because David will lose his mind if we end up doing this over Zoom.
Which is not an option. I'll let go of a lot of things. I'll do a lot of things myself. I'll edit these episodes myself, but I will not relinquish.
But he will not let us record over Zoom.
He'll level down. It's going to be Riverside or die. Do or die right here. You see it on the bike.
Oh my gosh.
It's like you didn't notice it all these weeks.
I did not. I did not until you pointed it out.
What I like the most about this episode is that Carol in this story has undying relevance to it. Daryl has gotten yay far into the story. The writers have made it so that Daryl needs a Tinkerbell, and that Tinkerbell is Carol. Right? He still believes. I'll go into detail on that.
Clap your hands, Peter. Clap.
Yeah, exactly. Clap your hands, Daryl. Oh, the pay's on. The pay's on. Which is like for Isabel, but because he's doing his best. Isabel's losing hope. It's really tough to watch. I hate that prediction I made in the last episode because it feels like it's going to come true. Basically, the paysan is kind of a signifier of, well, it's a lovely thing for now, but it's going to be short-lived. And that is Isabel in a nutshell for Daryl. I hate it. And she says, I love you this episode. He doesn't understand what je t'aime means.
Nail in the coffin. Mm-hmm.
It's the worst. How many times can we do this? Say what you will, whether you want Daryl to be with Isabel or not, is absolutely gut-wrenching. If you love Daryl, watch a man get smacked into a brick wall all the time when it comes to love. It's heart-rendering. No matter who you want him to be with, you're into this thing that we call the Walking Dead universe if you happen to be following Daryl on this series and you love it because of him. He's the thing. It's the Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. You don't want to see him hurt. But even if you think he should be with somebody else, he's hurting right now. He's going to be hurt in whatever episode it's going to be in, probably the next one. I hate that for everybody, but it's tough. It's tough to watch. And if you can't see that, I can't help you. I really can't. You need to stop being the way you are. That's what I think you should do. You should really re-examine. You're either Janae or you're Losang. You need to figure that out because that doesn't. I know it's rough, but you're an extremist. You're treating Daryl the same way Losang treats Laurent, which is you're just treating him as a thing. You're objectifying Daryl. You're using him for your own aims. You're not even seeing him as a person anymore, which is sad. I think. Mm-hmm. I think so. That's my impression. That's
Good job.
Again, I love that they're zeroing in on Carol, making her absolutely necessary to this plot. And in more ways than just, hey, I've got a plane over here, let's go. No, it's that she needs to be here. She needs to be the Tinkerbell to his Peter Pan, if you want to look at it that way. Mm-hmm. Well, didn't Peter Pan have a love interest too? If I'm not
Wendy,
right?
Yeah.
Everything hurts. Everything hurts.
I am trying to emotionally prepare myself for this reuniting of Carol and Daryl because it's going to happen, right? We're going to get it.
Definitely.
And it's taking me back to season 4 in the woods.
Him running to her?
Yeah. When he,
How many times? How many times? It's either he and Carol or he and Rick. And either time is, oh my God, got goosebumps.
when Daryl
Spit.
cries, we all cry. To see him, this kind of man, like get emotional, and I mean, I have sad cried, of course, but I don't very often sad cry. I'm more likely to get teary, like when really, really happy things happen. I become overwhelmed with emotion, and like sometimes it just pours out my eyes because I can't contain the happy.
What is this?
Yeah. Why am I leaking? I can already feel it coming. Like it's already bubbling under the surface when Carol and Daryl reunite. Again, I feel like I have to say, not for a romantic reason. Like that's not where I'm going with this, but just that friendship and what it's going to do for Daryl. I don't want to say like his confidence or like it's going to like reignite something in him though. When he sees her, you're going to see this fire under his ass. I can say ass. He's gonna
No, you can say ass. It's fine.
This episode in particular, I really did enjoy. I mean, I love every episode that Carol is in, and I completely agree with what you're saying. They are making her necessary. She gets to meet all these characters that we've already met along the way in a different capacity. Exactly. This
and almost a more meaningful capacity because we see Janae a certain way in the first season. Even Stéphane Caudron, right?
Absolutely.
That was a nutty meeting.
Carol is meeting these people in a completely different way than Daryl did. And it just goes to show you what we've always known. Our heroes are our heroes because of how the story is told. If we had started this story with Janae, we might be rooting for her and her group.
In my notes, I say that.
The biggest difference I can see here is that Losang...
They met the wrong people first.
Well, yeah. I mean, kind of. But like, what do we call it? The nest? Or we just
you can call it the nest Mont Saint-Michel, but the nest is easier.
Yeah. So the nesters, they're not going out and attacking first. Like Daryl wanted to, but Losang's like, no, man. We're about defense, not offense. Whereas Janae's more about the offense.
You mentioned that takes us back to the first episode where Losang is telling Daryl, try pacifism first. If you have to.
If you
absolutely must be violent.
He's playing defense. Yeah.
And in a way, they're still adhering to that. I mean, they want to incapacitate Daryl. They want to break Daryl. They want to break Isabel. They're trying to do minimal force as possible to do so, but because they're not showing you what they're doing. And I think that's a good move because you want to visualize in your head what they might be doing. If you see it too far, you might be like, hey, I thought these were like pacifists. Oh my God, I don't like what I'm saying. Nobody hurts my Daryl. And Isabel's all right.
Even a group of pacifists has to have muscle, right? I mean, they're capable of fighting, so they're capable of roughing them up a bit. But I think we've seen enough of that. We've seen Daryl get beat up, and I don't think anybody enjoys that. So just to see the aftermath, I think that drives home the point. We know what's happening. And obviously something happened to Isabel too. They didn't just scoop her up and bring her in there. Like they roughed her up too.
And they're almost to the point of breaking. Isabel is well on her way.
And I don't know exactly what their end goal is because I don't ever see Isabel being on board with allowing Laurent to be bit. I don't see her being like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, let's get that boy bit. They're not going to convince her of that.
The interesting thing about that exchange is that, and Bridget doesn't believe me, but the whole thing about Laurent was always going to be something in that vein. So she was on board with that.
In terms of the show or for Isabel? Like, do you mean like she always knew it was going to come to this, or?
Laurent was going to have to serve a purpose of bringing people back to life.
Like actually physically, not emotionally, not
spiritually.
Physically. I think it was more of a spiritual reawakening, like bringing people back to their humanity, not
they were
actually back to life.
They were convinced that they could raise Père Jean back to life until one of the Pouvoir de Vivant from Caudron's team took him down.
Yeah.
So why they didn't want to kill the dead.
But did she believe that?
I think she was naive.
I don't know.
Into thinking that there wouldn't have to be some sort of test or sacrifice. I thought you could be scientific about it. You could
draw
put
his
the blood.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they needed to, and this is the thing it could be a flaw in the show. It could be a demonstration of faith is really, I think, what they're going for. They need to see it in a most spectacular way in order to reaffirm, because Jacinta made it a point to say, it's not enough for there to be syringes and people looking at a thing and saying, it did it. Well, they needed a demonstration of faith.
Yeah.
And they repeated that in this episode. They needed to solidify people's faith. And they kept using the proof thing. I know we talked about that a lot.
But like Bridget said, and I completely agree with her, faith is believing without having that proof. If they had faith, they wouldn't need a demonstration. it would just be what they believe.
It's interesting because, let me put it to you this way. I have thought about this, and it having been Rosh Hashanah just before I left or actually really the second day of when I left for Spookala, and then also Yom Kippur, which just passed this weekend. At least in Judaism, there is an interesting tie between faith and miracles. You could say that faith requires no proof, but I think that's more of blind faith. I think at least the Old Testament does a good job of saying that we're flawed humans created in that way, and that sometimes we need some sort of sign to start. But when it comes to like Passover, let's say, it's one of those things where God did the miracles himself. He didn't send angels, which is what he would normally do. God would send angels to do all the things like messengers of death, of Gabriel, all that stuff, whatever. So when he did those miracles himself on Passover, splitting the Red Sea, all the plagues, that was him himself doing all the things. The people needed to see those. I mean, first of all, he was hoping that, look, the Egyptians were of his creation as well, made in the same image. They have the same free will as everybody else. He was hoping that he could soften the heart of the Pharaoh, let's say, and he was appealing to his creation to have compassion and to do his will, let's say. He gave him, was it 10 plagues? 10 chances to do so at the expense of his firstborn, the Pharaoh's firstborn, and it still wasn't enough. It was finally enough at that point. He didn't want to have to get to that point. That's the thing. We have always required some sort of demonstration. We just needed the wherewithal to see it and to understand it and then to believe it and then to act accordingly. It's kind of like when we talked about the tarot cards in the last episode, the third episode of the third season, where Tilly breaks out the tarot cards and she says basically anybody could do tarot. You can have the knowledge on the cards, how they appear when they flip over, are they upside down or are they right side up? But to understand what that means for the person requires a ton of intuition that most people do not have. So I don't believe in that stuff, but let's just say that it's real. Bridget did a whole disclaimer and I included it in the episode. I don't think it's necessary. Let's just go and say, if you believe in such things, it does require a certain amount of human intuition to be able to translate what you see to that specific person based on the question. It's the same with everybody. People do need a demonstration of some kind or sign of some kind. And maybe, and this has often happened in Judaism, they're all around you. You're just not seeing them or refusing to see them. And the truth is, that's what's happening in these episodes. Mm-hmm. Every single time they get closer to the ceremony or whatever it is, something terrible happens. And Losang gets proven wrong every single time. Jacinta went ahead and tried to force the hand of fate, and it ends up just completely backfiring. Daryl comes back because he's supposed to be dead, according to Jacinta. We talked about this at length in the last episode. And how does he not see the writing on the wall that the harder you push, kind of like the stuck place, when you push, the stuck place pushes back. When you force the hand of fate, you're not going to succeed. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to work. Had they just ran through the plan, it might have, and it would have went their way.
So going back to that original point with Isabel, her perspective on why Laurent is special and how that would manifest. She may believe that he would survive a bite, but I don't think she would put him into the position on purpose.
Right,
I think
kind
you
of
had
what
mentioned.
Bridget said it.
Was it Bridget? Okay, if they found themselves in a situation where like they're out in the wild and there's a walker and they can't get it away from him and he accidentally gets bit, maybe he would survive that. But to purposely put him in that position, I don't think Isabel is going to get on board with that. She may not have a choice for much longer because I think she's going to die real soon.
Here's what I think. This is why Losang closes the door on Daryl. He says, and this really pissed me off, by the way. I still think
when he said he has no hope.
Well, you're beyond hope.
You're beyond hope. Yeah.
And that is from hearing that from somebody of faith, to hear that somebody says you're beyond saving, that really turns me off. That kind of broke my heart, actually. Ooh. Not for Daryl, for Losang. That you've gone so far to say that anybody could be beyond hope. It's really, really sad because you're going to die now. I think this is what the core of my feelings come from. You could have been something so special for so many people, but somewhere along the way, you felt like you had to prove something. When belief, like Falou says, would have sufficed. Believe a little longer. Believe. It's kind of like when you see certain people on the Walking Dead universe, what could have been. Like Beth. Let's use Beth as an example. She could have been something crazy significant for our communities, but, had to see that cut short because of happenstance, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
But him, it's just like you're seeing somebody make the error. Our villains are the ones that had potential usually. Or at least, let's say Ginny. Yeah, Ginny's probably a good one. She kind of died right around the time where maybe she could have come around. Actually, that literally is what it was, but she didn't double down, stupid. It was just too late for her. Let's just put it that way. Somebody else cut her life short. And some of us may have applauded. Some of us were kind of like, well, what does that mean for that other person? Anyway, and it was pretty bad. But you know what?
Yeah.
I get it. And we'll move on now.
Yeah.
So seeing Losang make that move, seeing Daryl was basically irredeemable. Right when Losang walks away and Daryl is like yelling and he ignores him and he has that just stone face walking away, you think that it's because of what he just said that Daryl's irredeemable. But what he is going to do, and let's do the mind synchronization because I think we're thinking the same thing. He's going to double down on stupid, and what was once an accident with Sylvie is now on purpose with Isabel.
Oh, okay. I didn't go there.
Think. You need to push Laurent into a position where he will do this willingly. He already dosed him when it came to the Valerian root tea.
Valerian. I'm so
Unless
sad.
that's what Valerian root does.
I'm so sad Sharondy's not here to comment on the Valerian root.
Oh, it's a real thing, but yeah, I guess so. Just so you know, it's because of House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon.
I think it's spelled differently, though.
Is it?
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter because it was the same word and it was funny.
Spelled differently.
And I chuckled when I heard it.
Oh my gosh.
He was all like drugged out. I assume so that he didn't freak out when he got bit, which is deceiving.
Well, it's like anything. You could see it two ways. If you really, really want to look at it clinically, let's say you're getting eye surgery and you have to be completely still. You jump at things, you're told to keep still and there's something over there and you look that way and the laser blasts the white of your eyes instead of the center. So they give you a sedative and they also numb your eyelid areas and stuff so that you don't move. You don't have that instinct or flicker to move your eyeballs. So it's kind of like that if you want to look at it clinically. But really, it feels off, doesn't it?
It does, because he lied to Laurent about it, too. He didn't tell him he was being sedated. I feel like it's more of a deception, because if this is all faith-based, then Laurent is also believing that he's going to be okay. So what is there to fear? The people watching believe he's going to be okay, so they don't need to freak out. It makes me feel like, what is Losang, like, what is he thinking in that moment? I did. I had to think about it, though. I saw it,
but you did it.
Is he having doubts?
I think really what it is he mentions the whole wetting his pants at the piano recital just to illustrate a point that no matter how calm you are in the moment, it could turn immediately. Like any child, because a child is taught fire is going to burn you. But if you train yourself over and over again, but he doesn't want him to have to face that, even though he says he wants to do it. And this is the thing we really should be focusing on, is that really Laurent is ready to do this. He is. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's being prepared for. He's completely coached on the subject matter. But, he's just numbing his senses so that he will commit to it, body and mind and soul and instinct, because your instinct is to pull away from fire. And so he doesn't want there to be an accident. So you spray zombie blood on somebody's face. Well, it might be too late for them, but we'll see. But, you don't want to take any chances. I don't know. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Because let's say they go for the carotid, right? He flinches in a certain way and the zombie kind of takes out his jugular. Well, even if he's like the savior, it's not going to help him out. Exactly. Profusely and quickly. I mean, our parents deceive us all the time. That's what I kind of relegated it to when it comes to getting a shot, which I'm spoke about once before. Well, he's still a child, though. That's the thing. That's really what it is, right? Like, oh, you're going to get a lollipop at the end of the shot. You're going to be the savior of this kingdom of heaven. But also there's a lollipop, Laurent. That's what really disturbed me, is that the dose was so strong that when he saw Walker Sylvie, he was just like out. He
didn't really have a reaction. Yeah. I thought that was going to be a little bit more visceral, and he was like...
That was disturbing to me.
Yeah, it was.
That was his friend. That whole journey through the first season. And I think, you know what? Can you walk with me on this one thought feeling that I've been having? because I think you might have the same feeling, because Sylvie was a pretty significant character in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And to see her kind of go the way that she did, yeah, it's really super sad, but I thought I'd throw a bigger fit about it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
There is a lot of stuff going on in this episode, but this happens and then all this other sad stuff happens. And it's like, there's no room to feel really bad that Sylvie died.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, because I feel like I should feel worse, but I somehow don't. Are you on the same page as me? I didn't cry. I didn't do anything. I didn't feel terribly about it. I'm not saying I'm glad she's gone. I'm a monster. I'm just saying I thought I would feel worse about it, but I don't know why I don't.
I feel like at this point, I'm just expecting everyone except Carol and Daryl to die. So when it happens, I'm like, that took longer than I thought.
But shouldn't we feel something? I
don't know.
I don't know.
I don't very often feel the thing I should feel, so I'm not the one to ask.
It was objectively sad.
2 thoughts. One,
okay.
My initial thought was...
Because I'm a robot, I need your help.
I know. Well, I'm robot adjacent. I'm human, but dead inside.
Gotcha.
My first thought was... at least Sylvie never had to learn about Emil. She didn't find out he was a turncoat. So I guess that's one good thing.
I didn't think of that. Okay.
And then my second thought was I was more surprised by Isabel's lack of reaction when she saw Sylvie. Because Isabel's been with Sylvie longer than we have.
Or maybe, just to be fair on Isabel and Falou, and I'm going to show just this really quick snapshot of Falou popping into view. And for some reason, if I replay that over and over in my head, he looks so suave as he pops into view. He's like, let me just see if I can, it's impossible, but I'm going to try to. He's just like.
It's true. No, it's true.
It's hard to elucidate.
It's like panning the crowd and then you see like this empty space and then he just like
pops into view with his
like,
stern look. And
it's like just perfectly combed beard.
Oh my God.
It's just beautiful.
Perfectly manicured beard face
it's
thing.
So beautiful.
It's hard to argue with.
Yeah.
Bright white beard and teeth. And
just
as
gorgeous.
Much as we want to complain about it, it's just like, okay, I'm going to let you have it.
Yeah, no.
Falou Bukar, you're a beautiful man.
I love it.
And I want to keep you that way.
Nothing bad to say about that moment at all.
The male Mona Lisa, that guy.
For real.
And
invisible,
he's a snappy
right?
dresser in real life.
Invisible, right?
He is not invisible. He's the opposite of invisible. He's very visible.
No,
also, patriarchy always wins.
He snuck on the side of that building.
Yeah, but it's ironic because really, are you invisible, Falou? Everybody sees you. Nobody can't not see you. You beautiful son of a bitch. I'm just saying the show makes you want to think that he's invisible, but God damn it, you're so visible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. It's like, let's move on because I've shown my hand.
He's gorgeous.
Falou Bukar.
End of statement.
Too much. Yeah, no, so going back to the point, so much was happening so fast. I can see a world in where she just doesn't react to it. And look, who was the one to take the shot this time? It was Daryl. So,
he was in position for it too. I think it was always going to be him.
Too much to have her do it too, by the way. Yeah.
I mean, they didn't know who the walker was going to be, but I think Daryl was always going to take the shot. He was always going to kill whoever the walker was before it bit Laurent.
Right. And he was behind her, so he probably didn't know it was her until she fell to the floor.
That's fair. I did appreciate how very ceremonious the whole thing was. Like even Sylvie was in like a robe and
monk's robe.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right. I mean, if you're going to do it right. And they did. So good job, guys.
But I feel like they're going to do it again with Isabel. I know we treaded on this already.
That would be very interesting.
It'd be the only way to get him to really do it.
Yeah,
willingly.
I don't know if I see that for the future, but I do see Isabel not making it. I don't think she's going to survive. She said, I love you. So she's done.
Well, we should note a couple of things that we saw that may play into things later. One is Laurent is playing with the Rubik's Cube just before Losang comes in with the Valerian root tea and all that stuff. He stuffs it into his sweater pocket. You could see it visibly throughout the entire episode, and it stays there. Well, even at the hideout, whatever, it's with him. Remember, this is the Rubik's Cube that I think you see him play in the first season at the beginning of the first episode. Another thing that is a little bit more obvious than that is Isabel taking the shower drain that is kind of broken into her pocket. She kicks it and then she kind of takes it, puts it in her hand. I think that's going to show up in the next episode. She's going to get herself. Like, remember, I've been waiting to see like her con man abilities come out in some form or fashion. I thought originally it was going to be her saying, "Oh, I'm bit. Won't save me," but it's a con. So she's like, "Oh, you're better now."
Ew.
But then we walk off into the sunset. Okay, everybody else get bit as we walk away slowly.
Yeah.
But no, I think she's going to try to escape with that, and it's going to go horribly wrong. I hate this so much.
Something's going to happen.
Can I just say this out loud? Do you think this is a little bit formulaic, that Daryl just
Um,
cannot be happy, whether it's the fans' wish or not?
I don't think it's specific to Daryl. I think it's the show.
No, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that. I mean, you could say that, but the show
think
kind of
it's anyone.
does that.
I think it's anyone on the show. Okay, I can think of one truly happy character. One.
Rick and Michonne?
No, not even them.
Ever?
Jerry.
They're not very happy, you think?
Jerry's the
Jerry
only
and
happy.
Nabila.
Jerry and Nabila. They're the only ones that last.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there's also Eugene and Max. Okay. Well, it took a while.
When we left them, sure, but that took a while too.
I mean, it was almost dicey with Jerry and Nabila. Jerry had his moments here and there. Remember your reaction to the 13th episode, I think it was? No. It was one of the third episode from the end. You're like, Jerry, no. When Lydia was going out to the Walker and he kind of follows her into the Walker herd.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And several other moments.
But he made it through. I don't think it's
exactly.
okay. But to answer your question, I don't think this is a Daryl specific formula. I think it's just the show. It's to keep us interested, right? To keep us on our toes. Like, what's going to happen? Are they going to be happy? Are they not? Oh, we can't have that. So now they got to die and find somebody else. And I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I just, you know what it is? It's like, because we know there's a season 3. Absolutely. We know that Daryl and Carol are going to be in that season 3. Daryl himself says, I found something.
Mm-hmm.
And that something it's like this adopted son and significant other.
Yeah. Another family. Another form of family.
The whole point of building season 1 to get to that point, which I love that it was slow.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't see it. We kind of saw it in some cases, in some ways. Maybe we didn't want to see it because that too would be formula. For it to happen in the second season actually kind of makes sense because it kind of names it and then it does it. And then you're like, oh, I'm so surprised. And yet you could see it going in that direction this whole time. And then when it finally does happen, it's great. For most people who have a soul. But to have all that buildup and then have that complete last episode, for it to be taken away so tragically is in itself a beautiful thing. But it's like we did that with Leah. We did that with Beth, for some people believe. No, Beth's alive. No, she dead, girl.
What?
She dead. She have a hole in her head, girl.
Beth is
anyway. So what I'm saying is, and I don't even think that was a romantic thing, but if you think so, that's fine. But that's kind of a moot point. Let's just put it that way. It happened and it's gone. So I'm sorry about that. But I want to add that knowing that I feel like we're at the end stages of anything. I don't want to say this. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. We're reaching the apex of how much we can milk out of AMC / The Walking Dead universe. And so it's like the counter positive to The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, where they kind of did this whole thing so that Rick could have a happy ending. But the ending itself felt either rushed or just too picture perfect, where this built up to a point where, okay, it took a whole season plus and it built up very slowly. It's not like we could do anything. No, it felt like they couldn't do everything. They couldn't save everyone. They did their best. And even still, what's left over is them and Laurent. And they're in this position where now it's in dire straits. They're doing this under duress and things are not good. It's not like The Ones Who Live where like, we got this in the bag. We totally got this. No, they don't got this. And they need a Carol to save them. I feel like this season is an answer to The Ones Who Live. Like, well, no, you don't got this. Somebody has to save you at this point. And, well, we're going to lose somebody along the way. I don't know. It just feels like it feels wrong. Look at me. It feels wrong for Daryl to not have a happy ending. This is coming from me. I don't care about happy endings. I care about good story. Well, I guess I'm being affected by this. I feel like that's really the answer. I'm getting affected by this. The story is so, let's put it this way. The story is so good that I'm too invested in the character of Daryl Dixon to care about good storytelling. What have they done to me? What have they done to me? And from somebody who really didn't give a flying S about Daryl Dixon before the series started, really. Or like the end of The Walking Dead, really. They've moved me across time, but they've moved me. Kind of like this whole Daryl and Isabel relationship.
I don't know how anybody really has any kind of happy ending in this world. At best, I think we can hope for happy moments and hold on to that. Happy ending.
I think you're right.
Just
The paysan.
Yep. Take what you can get and be happy with that. And then maybe there'll be another happy moment. Maybe there won't, but I don't know. Just get through it.
Right.
I think that's
You're right,
great
though.
that Daryl found something. I'm sure he didn't expect to either.
Yeah, not at all.
So the
Not at all.
fact that he found something and felt like he belonged somewhere that wasn't Alexandria.
He
feels
mentions
like
Ohio, the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
I love that. What this show interestingly answers is the question that Daryl might have had all along. Is it just because I fell in with these people and they're like, okay, you're here, and they love him and he loves them?
Mm-hmm.
But the question could have been, am I lovable? And I don't blame him for feeling that way, because the people that end up loving him end up dying. Rick, for all he knows, Leah. You could say what you will about that whole experience and what it ended up being. But yeah, was it just a freak like Leah? She the only one that can love me? Is it a one-time thing? My brother eventually sacrificed himself for me, but is that all there is?
Right.
But to see him be able to navigate that somewhere completely alien and to have it proven that, yes, you are lovable. In fact, there's a lot to love about you. That's a lot. And I love that for him. Considering where he came from, by the way.
Absolutely. Even in the real world right now, outside of TV, don't feel that. So it's a good feeling to watch your favorite characters get it.
Yeah, well, and it gives you hope in a weird roundabout way that TV can only do.
Maybe you just got to go to France to find it.
It's a recommendation. Yeah, why not? Go backpacking.
Maybe.
Just don't start a French Revolution. They did that and it turned a little ugly, kind of like what we're seeing in this episode. Janae is evoking all the things that the French revolutionaries were really going after and throwing bodies at a problem.
Literally.
This is a Charity topic, by the way. I feel really bad about this, but Charity would say that the French Revolution there are some things in this world that are justified, but when you take it too far, kind of like Losang. These two entities took their thing and took it too far. Losang could have stopped at some sort of, let's take a syringe and take Walker blood and put Laurent's Walker blood. Let's mix it up. Let's not sacrifice the child for the sake of this thing. He's still a person. Do you mix it up in a vial and you'd be like, oh, it's clear, whatever. But Janae could just fight. She literally ends the lives of people to create these vicious walkers, these aggressive walkers, to fight the faithful in a horrendous, possibly, we don't know what's going to happen in the next episode, horrendous display to not only defeat them, but to break their soul, their spirit, their ability to fight. You thought you had faith? Watch these monsters. And we're going to use those monsters in this also display of this test, this demonstration, because they've never really tested this out in the real world. Just at Daryl Dixon in the pit that one time where the one head exploded and the other one kind of gave up after a little while and the other one actually did work. What we called it, the Hulk monster, because he was wearing a green jumpsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And the light was kind of weird and funky. They want to use this on scale, just like the burners that we saw initially, which Remy mentions and says, well, this was a failed experiment that they kind of unleashed on the world because, who cares about them?
Yep.
Who cares about Daryl Dixon's acid arm in the first episode? But it goes back to the point. Going too far, demonstrations, a test of strength or a test of faith. Where it goes wrong is when you go too far. Like you said in the beginning, had it been any other situation, because I was looking at Carol that whole time. I was like thinking to myself, is she looking what her future could have been had she taken some of the things that she did too far? Like the Karen and David thing.
Oh.
In the prison. If you think about it, if you're just senselessly, thoughtlessly killing people without any consideration to how other people will feel, well, yeah, there you go. That's Janae in a sense. But it's for a greater good. So I can never see Carol doing anything. Well, no, that's not true. She would do something for the greater good.
Absolutely. I'm not going to lie. I got a little bit nervous this episode because when she meets...
Because Carol's telling the truth?
Well, not entirely. I mean, not
entirely.
entirely.
Just that one bit at the end.
What bit? Killing Daryl? She doesn't want to kill Daryl.
No, that's the bit at the end that she lied about. But everything else was on point. Down
Daryl's
to the environmentalist.
That part she told the truth. Anyway, she's, having these conversations with Janae and it feels like they're like sort of having like girl bonding time, right? And exactly like you just said, Carol's like, I can like see it on her face like, she's got the right idea. And then Janae does the thing.
With the program.
Janae does the thing where she makes the guy eat off the floor and Carol's like,
yeah, I would do that.
Badass bee alert.
Bee.
Like, yeah. Like I can almost see like an admiration almost like, okay, these people respect her. She's doing something here. And I think up until the moment where Cadron tells Carol that Janae is going to kill Dixon, Then Carol was like, oh, no. Nope.
Oh,
Nope,
she's
sorry,
right
honey.
up until that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Think
No, now you've crossed the line.
I'm actually kind of wondering because I think maybe part of her thought she could breach Janae because I think she sees maybe a little bit utility in her that she could be a force for good. I'm not saying this is true. I'm just throwing it out there to see if
she's
it sticks.
influential enough if she used those influences for good. I'm not sure what Carol thought the end game was going to be. And maybe she didn't even think that far ahead. Maybe her only thought was Janae's going to take me to where Daryl is, period. End of thought. This is what I need to do. She might not have even been thinking about what's going to happen when we get there. But then when she realizes, oh, you're going to like kill your people and then like send them, whoa, you are not okay up here.
No. This is the exact opposite of what I thought this was going to be.
Yeah.
Because she did see the experiments. And of course, she files that away. I think she thinks it's horrible.
I can't even be mad at the idea of experiments. The way they're doing it, obviously, is horrific.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Horrible. But every single advancement we have ever had in the history of life started with experiments.
Yeah, until we had moral codes, basically.
Exactly. To learn things, you have to experiment. Obviously,
Right.
The idea of that is not a bad idea. But how they're going about it,
That's immoral.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
Yeah, it's unethical. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
I didn't put this in my notes, but there is a little evocation of the death camps with the way the barbed wires are kind of curved this in such a way. Usually most barbed wire is not curved inward like that to pen people in as they're going through the arches with the barbed wire. There is a bit of Nazi death camp sort of situation going on there, which is telling because what they're literally doing is they're separating the firm from the infirm and really experimenting on the slightly infirm, it feels like. Like Julianne was supposed to be one of the test subjects for the atelier, which is really the workshop.
Remy gave Carol up, and I can only assume
he knew it in that moment when...
Absolutely. I can only assume it was with the promise of seeing his husband.
That's right.
He took that information and said, I will tell you what's going on, but you need to let me see my husband. So are we going to see him?
I don't think we're going to see him. I think that's going to be an open question because we're not going back to that. If we had to gun to your head sort of situation, I think they killed both of them, period. Right?
Yeah.
It's such utter disregard to human life.
That would be a lot quicker, easier ending.
Yeah.
I thought it would be a little more dramatic if they were like, yeah, sure, we'll take you to your husband, and he's already turned.
Well, I don't know about turned. I'm just saying that I think they didn't take them to Paris. They wouldn't expend the resources.
No.
She says,
no, of course not.
She says Sabine is going to personally take you to Paris. Sabine is with them. Sabine, by the way, Sabine is the second in command, by the way. We learn her name when we go to the past, and she's whatever. We see her in the present.
She's on the
whatever.
janitorial staff, yeah.
She's like, no, we're busy trying to fight a war, guys. I don't have time to go to Paris right now. But even though this is a whole thing we'll get into, but whatever. What do you think? You thought that, they already turned him into a walker and then he basically took it. I think it's so on brand because I'm not thinking that they're evil. No, they just have literally no regard to human life. So they just take them out back and shoot them. Why waste the resource? The gas? Why make more gas? Just, ingloriously kill them. Why? Thanks for the info. Bye.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I always wonder about these little side characters and what's going on with them.
Listen, I'm still wondering about Virgil. And remember that I mentioned that one lady.
Characters.
Yeah, like in the beginning. Well, I mean, Virgil had some significance. We don't hear from him ever again. What about that lady from the first episode in Daryl Dixon, the one with the grandfather they shot, Codron shot?
Oh yeah,
I thought she would show up at the end, but I guess not. She went with them, so I don't know. Maybe she'll come in the clinch.
Maybe.
For those who are uninformed, let's assume that Maison Mère is in the south because they have to go north to the beaches of Normandy to see Mont Saint-Michel. Problem is, if Maison Mère is in Paris and they do stop in the Louvre, that is in Paris, it's kind of out of their way because Paris is directly east of Mont Saint-Michel. Mont Saint-Michel is directly west of Paris. So I don't know where this place is. Let me just put it this way. They either went way out of their way to go to the Louvre, which, could be one of those things that has significance. Because if we see their origin story in the beginning of the episode and she's making a point to head to the Louvre, to go way out of their way, there must be some significance to Janae about this spot, or having to come here to make sure that she's forgiven herself for her past, seeing her husband die, reminding herself of that this is the flood, that I'm going to have to throw a bunch of bodies at this thing. Sorry, I say the flood very casually, but she references this painting called Le Déluge, which is the flood, Noah's Ark flood. Why did the flood happen? Because people stopped being good to each other. They started There's a bunch of not things that we don't want to talk about on a podcast. It starts with the R word.
Anyway.
Or in general, people not being really good to each other. And Noah
People
gives a warning to
sucking.
the people. Yeah. And he says, hey, this flood is coming. I'm preparing for it. There's no stopping it. But hey, if you want to be good and come onto this ark that I'm building, I know I sound crazy, but come on in. Anyway, the depictions are basically of carrying humanity on your back as the flood comes. And it's a man holding an elderly person on his shoulders while trying to grip womanhood and the youth, the child the woman is holding
Bebe.
by her breast. And it's the symbolism of man trying to hold on with the skin of its teeth during this flood. Isn't that what we're doing here? Isn't that what this is all about? Take away all the God, take away all the calamity. That's what we're doing here. Sometimes this is all we have. And we're doing our best to kind of keep this together. And it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love seeing that imagery. And Janae gets it, but she kind of goes a little too far. That's really what she's saying. There's no God that's going to save you here. God said his thing and the flood is here. And you know what? I didn't listen. Well, all we have is us. But she took it a little too far, and the value of human life is kind of sucky. But she comes back here to remind herself about this apocalypse, about what it means, that throughout our prayers, nobody was going to save us. I say all this because she really, really, at the end of the day, goes out of her way to see the Louvre.
Maybe.
And I thought that was interesting.
Or there just is no direct route to where they're going. A lot of the world has collapsed and grown over.
Things move. This isn't the trees haven't moved.
No, but I mean, there may not be a direct route to where they're trying to go.
Maybe.
I mean, it could just be as simple as that. Also, like you said, we don't know where they are. Maybe it goes straight through there. We don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
We don't know.
I also looked at how much time it would take to get from Paris to the Mont Saint-Michel. I don't know. Maybe there's somewhere to the west, and it would have been a direct route to go north, but they kind of just took a way out of the way reroute. It just doesn't make sense to me.
We don't need to think that hard about it. They went through there because they had to circle back to the flashback that we saw in the beginning.
I know, but it just makes me upset. I feel like I'm one of you guys was like, it doesn't make sense. Why would they do that? So I have to be you now.
Well, it makes sense because that's where she was in the beginning. So they came back to it.
But you're being me now. You're like, oh, you had to come back to the beginning because that's what we saw.
I mean, I would have been perfectly fine if they didn't go past the Louvre as well. They could have.
Same here.
They could have skipped that whole scene, and I wouldn't have been like, "Whoa, why didn't they drive by there?"
Let's toss out the reason and the logistics and whatever. At the end of the day, what is it for? Because she says earlier with Carol in her office, it
does hold meaning.
Well, she says she's specifically this. She says the men seem to be able to put these things behind them. She's wrong because Daryl clearly doesn't put his pain, these things, the pain behind them to do what they do, the men they do so well. But I think she goes there probably to remind herself that she has to turn it off. What she's about to do with all these people whom I have to assume she's grown to love or care for, that she's going to have to do some dastardly things to them to get them to do what she wants. She has to believe that what she's doing is for a greater cause. She gives a whole speech about it. But Égalité, Fraternité, and Liberté, basically the French slogan. It's like we have God, country, and guns. No, the French have anyway. But she gives that whole speech. She has to believe, just like Losang, that the thing that she's doing is the right thing to do. And I think going to the Louvre is her convincing herself that to turn off all those, maybe those motherly feelings, those matronly feelings, some of which we did see in the first season when she's holding the baby. Yes, we were terrified, but also when the terror has fled, we saw a side of her that we didn't get to see. In some ways is sad and tragic. And everybody around her is like, God, that's sad and tragic.
Even this episode, we see a protective nature when she makes that guy eat the food off the floor because she's protecting the server.
The person she once was.
Exactly, yeah. Which also, who does that? That guy's a D-bag.
Douche nozzle.
Seriously. She's like, food is a scarce resource, yes?
Whoops.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, then why are you throwing it on the floor?
Isn't that ironic, though?
Look around.
Because if food is a resource, what are people?
Tools?
Right? Well, that's the irony. Yeah. What is the food for people? What are people then? Do people have less value than food? It really makes you think.
Because of how he's treating
the person.
She's
doing all the right things. But then she goes too far because the food is for the people.
Much like Losang.
Right. That's what I'm saying, though. It's like the food is for the people, for them to sustain themselves. But what happens when you throw away the people? You're putting more value on the food than you are the people.
Are you saying like what happens at the end? Because I don't. Okay, because I don't think she sees it as throwing them away. She's not throwing these people away. She's making them.
I meant more
useful.
objectively speaking. Yeah.
Oh, like
there's just something
like
twisted about it. Yeah.
But in her mind, this is a necessary sacrifice. And I will say, I don't want to give her too much credit, but I will give her credit because these people knew this was not a surprise to them. They knew what they were. Yes. Yeah. She said, this is what we've been preparing for months.
So what you're saying is
they didn't show up with weapons for everybody.
I guess we'll see what that looks like in the next episode. But then what you're saying is what she managed to do to a ton of people, what Losang couldn't do with one kid. That's crazy. Well, and then, well, you know what? We have compared Janae to a certain German figure. And we already said that the barbed wire did look like Auschwitz and all that stuff. And here we go again. And she used the word degenerate when it came to what's his name's paintings, degenerate art. Remember, what's his name again? I forget. Isabel's ex-boyfriend. I forget his name.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
The English fellow. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But she used the word degenerate art, which is what the Nazis used to French Nouveau art. And what was Hitler if not influential, if not charismatic? You could get people to do, and Losang is great. Yeah. He was very charismatic. He's too soft. He's more of the Stalin. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's not. He's not. Not at all, actually. But she managed to do what he could not to tons of people. She just had the goods. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. And you could even see it. It paints that whole scene in the square where people are giving up their guns. Another thing that they did is take away people's fire. Anyway, for food. And it paints that whole scene in a whole different light, is that she manages to get people on their side by convincing them that we're the only way. We're going to provide for you in a world where there's scarcity and you are afraid for your life all the time. We're going to take you in. We're going to give you a purpose, even if that purpose is going to be worked on in the atelier with the workshop. I hate this comparison, but here we are. It's just irony is rife. It's just crazy that she managed to do that. It further reinforces the fact that, okay, Losang may have been a good guy at one point, but
I still think he has good intentions. I mean, I could say the same for Janae. She believes she's doing the right thing as well.
Let's take it to one of Sharon D's comments. That is in my notes as well, is that Janae does come off a little bit like Martha from Fear the Walking Dead season 4. The whole being strong and not taking any help, and that you need to rely on yourself, not faith or hope or anything like that. Nobody's going to come for help, that sort of thing. I mean, there are similarities that you can draw to these people. Just on that very note, she hits on something that, because if Ash is the ghost of Carol's past, and let's assume that Janae is the ghost of Carol's alternate future, what she might have been, then it goes to show that we're in the present. Remy kind of points out something that's very specific to Carol, and that is, you would have done the same thing to get Daryl back. Yeah. That should send alarm bells to Carol. I think she kind of agrees. She doesn't seem very sore about it too much.
Yeah, she seems very understanding.
I think she's getting a lot of messages. I think we're finally seeing maybe something here for Carol.
Can I diverge?
I can't wait to hear your take.
No. It's not even a take. It's just something that popped into my head that struck me as awkward. And I wanted to know if you caught it and what your thoughts on it were. And it has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, other than it involves Remy and Carol. So when they're sitting on that cot or whatever, talking about, come with me, come help me find Daryl or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving without Julian. Did you see how they were sitting?
Describe what you think you saw.
He was sitting up and Carol had her leg up sort of like this. And he had his arm around her leg and she had her arms around his arm. It looked like an awkward romantic set. And I'm like, this is a strange way to be sitting. Like, she had her hands around his arm and his arm was sort of around her leg that was bent
looped in and whatnot.
No, like all the way around it, but like this is really hard to describe.
So what did that evoke in terms of feelings?
I don't know. Confusion, really, because this conversation is happening, but I'm too busy focusing on, like, are those her hands? Wait, that's his hand going like this
around
and then
her leg.
Like it kind of took me out of the scene because I was so focused on, where are their hands? Whose hands am I looking at?
You're pointing a finger on something that I actually didn't notice, but if you think about it, let's take what you've got.
It does show a level of I mean, I want to say like intimacy, but not in a romantic way, but like it shows a closeness in this relationship very quickly too. They essentially just met, but they sort of bonded very quickly in a way that they are being physical with each other in a platonic way, but like,
yeah,
still,
because obviously,
but
you are kind of dovetailing to what I'm saying, which is basically that Remy is the ghost of Christmas present. It's the thing she's going after is the same thing Remy and Julienne. Let's just say they get out of there. If she can help them with their situation and free them, it means that she is doing the same thing with Daryl.
Yeah, which we know is not going to happen, but it's nice to have hope.
Right.
She can imagine that they're in Paris somewhere being happy, even
hopefully,
if they're not.
Right. Let's assume, because listen, no matter what I say, she's operating on the premise that they're okay. Isn't that the thing about hope that Falou says? If you believe in something,
then it's true.
Then it's true. Right, exactly. As long as you don't take it too far. Because it's the thing that helps you weather you through tough times. You see Daryl trying to do that with Isabelle and himself. He's trying to convince himself. He's trying to say, I can't wait till Laurent comes back to us and he'll go to school and be a regular kid. Isabelle's just not believing it. But he is doing it for himself mostly, but also Isabelle, because they're together. They're the thing. And it's tough to watch.
For now.
Yeah. But going back to Cal and Remy, she feels that kinship. It's the ghost of Christmas present. She is saying, if I can do this for him, I can do this for me. And that's why she's so into helping him. Yeah. When otherwise, I guess you could easily say that's her translator. That's it. She's just putting on her Carol charms to get to have a free translator in Paris.
You could say that, but that's not what I see. I do see...
That would be very simple.
Yeah. I see a genuine connection between Carol and Remy.
But you can see why it would be fast, is what I'm saying.
It did happen really quickly.
There's a reason.
But sometimes that happens, right? You just meet somebody and instantly you're like, oh yeah, yep, we're friends. I just feel something from this person and I like what's happening here. And you know what proves
all of that? He pulled a Carol on her. There you go. And she's so proud of him in that moment.
And she's standing there like, I knew I liked you. I knew that.
She didn't really. She was very stone faced, which is very Carol. So there you go.
Inside, right? But on the inside,
she's like, couldn't be happier.
I knew.
You're going to go very far, Remy.
Yep.
If they don't kill you,
you're going to go immediately when you leave this room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love how we went there, by the way.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess.
Well, now I'm on your side. I'm like, oh yeah, I hope they live now, because that would make what they're about to do successful. Probably, maybe. I want to go to more of Charity's points. I agree with Janae on religion, but I don't want to kill people who have ... hope ? I don't know. Sounds like a sketchy raison d'etre. And then she says, if you want to push it till 7, I said, no. You didn't show up anyway.
Here we are at 7:30, so it's a good thing we didn't push it.
Yeah, I agree with her. I think we kind of covered that when it came to Janae also sounds like Hitler.
Yeah.
We said a lot of words until we finally got to the Hitler part.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens though. We got to talk it out before we hit on the point. But
yeah, the nail.
I mean, if that's
you have to dance around the nail before you hit it on the head.
If that's the point of view that somebody takes on religion, then yeah, it would absolutely make sense. Janae's point of view. Yeah. So, but again,
true. Yeah. Well, that's Carol in a nutshell though, isn't it?
Right. Oh, yeah, that too. But even our bad guys have their own point of view. And if we are watching the show from their point of view, they would be our hero. So yeah, everybody thinks they're the good guy in their own story.
Sadly. Yeah. What is with the French? I wanted to hit the nail on the head with one specific thing. And I said, oh no, I already said it with the Ghost of Christmas. It's a Christmas Carol. It's a Christmas Carol.
A Christmas Carol.
There was one thing one of the things that we never did that I'm about to do it now is the etymology of the name Caudron. And we'll get to a bigger one in just a second, but Caudron means to cordon or a cord or a ribbon that you tie together. Now, if that's Stéphane Caudron, then he's connecting Carol to Daryl. I thought you'd like that because you like that. Okay. You want to hear an interesting little leap that you may not like, but you'll like anyway because it's Carol? We've never, ever on the history of this podcast did the etymology of the name Carol. And I think it's kind of miraculous or serendipitous or whatever you want to call it that we're doing it now. Because of the Peter Pan reference this episode, and Tinkerbell specifically. Tinkerbell in French is fée.
F-E-E, not
fée.
F-A-E. You spelled it F-E. Yeah.
That's how you spell it in French. So fée as in fée, like the fée in Gaelic, right?
Right.
Fée clochettes is Tinkerbell. So anyway, if Carol is Tinkerbell, and the etymology of Carol is the old French of the word to sing in a circle. Carole,
Okay.
like a Christmas carol, right?
Yeah, like going
Carole.
caroling.
What do people have to do to give Tinkerbell strength?
Clap.
Believe, right?
They have to
clap.
Yeah, and believe.
They have to encircle her.
They're
If you ever watch the movie,
she's like Santa Claus. You have to believe in her.
Yeah, Carol. They're encircling the Tinkerbell. We're clapping to make her believe, and then she rises up and kills people.
Yay!
Isn't that great that we never did that until now? But it's so uniquely purposeful for this moment that they inserted it in this episode to make us think about these things. Yeah, that makes complete sense. She's the savior. Tinkerbell does save the day when it comes to Peter Pan. That little clinch at the end to help Peter Pan win the day. Hopefully to keep Peter Pan and Wendy together forever, but not exclusively.
Maybe. I don't really care.
Because Tinkerbell was in love with Peter Pan.
This is true. This is true. That was so heartbreaking.
So will the carolers eat well the next episode, next week? Ugh.
But she cared more about him to let him be happy.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, she
love.
does reference him. She says to Stefan, he's my brother, which we should mention.
It's
the reason
not
why
entirely
Stefan
a lie, right?
No, not at all a lie. In fact, I'm surprised she hasn't called him that sooner.
Before,
but oddly enough, using that specific, again, like the etymology of the name Carol, we did it today. She uses the exact word that Stefan needed because his whole thing about going in this tailspin against Daryl was the belief that he killed his brother. And who she says brother, he wasn't going to give her any information until she said that word. He's the only family I have left, which is what his brother was his only family he had left. That's what got him to snap out of it. The only person on this, we can say, goddamn show that is paying attention to the signs and adhering to them when he sees them is Stéphane Caudron, the cord, the ribbon, who we thought was the bad guy in the last season until the very end.
Excuse me?
He's like the Jesus character.
Wait, whoa. I remember specifically saying the first time we met him, I'm not so sure he's a bad guy.
Okay. I like it. I mean, he was kind of being a bad guy. Let's just be honest. He killed one lady. I don't know.
He was following orders, which is something else I think I said. I'm not so sure he's the bad guy.
He was just, what did you say? He's just following orders? The Nazis did anyway. Listen, I'm not judging him. I'm just saying I'm actually applauding him. One of the only villains, quote unquote. He's like the new Negan.
Well, and he stood up and said no when he felt like it was morally wrong. He had a line. Yeah, and he said this is too much. So since we're on Caudron, I feel like he gave Daryl up. I think they finally broke him.
Because, Remy gave him up 100%. See, when Remy gave up the beaches of Normandy,
had the watch. She was looking at that watch that Caudron had.
She connected. So let's put it this way: because Remy gave Carol up what she was about to do, and they set up the honeypot, made her believe that she could get away to get to the beaches of Normandy. She connected the dots. She saw the pocket watch with Mont Saint Michel on it. He didn't have to say a word after Carol screwed the pooch again. I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm kidding. It was going to happen.
Fault her for having trust in someone.
Well, and the trust that she had was the same, mirrored her what she needed to do for Daryl. So it's like we said about Ghosts of Christmas Present or whatever. You can't fault her. None of us could fault her.
I hope it doesn't damage her in a way that she won't trust going forward.
I've said this more often than I really care to, but in some senses, sometimes things need to break in order to be able to move forward. Well, and you know what? Janae says it to her too, that we need to face and forgive ourselves for our past, not continue to operate under the premise that there's no redemption. So I might as well. In some senses, you could look at Carol and see that she lives in a world where she's just a specter. And as long as I'm a ghost, or like a ghost of vengeance, that I'll do some good in this world, or I'll protect the people that I haunt. You wouldn't fault yourself for thinking that way. And this is why we feel like she's a tragic character. She tries to act like a human in the world. She tries to replicate being a mom again. It just doesn't work out. But I think having faced the Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas Future, and Ghost of Christmas Present, that hopefully there's a way forward for her. I really hope that for her. I think she needs to break. I think she needs to face these pieces of herself that finally are being addressed. That maybe in doing so, she'll actually join the Walking Dead universe in a real substantive way where she too can come home and teach the kids, or wake up late and walk against the stream and look at the sunset and maybe catch the fireflies and do nothing and be okay with that. Unlike the meditation tape that she couldn't get out of the tape player.
Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't that disturbing though? We want the badass Carol. We want that forever.
Well, it's not even...
What does Carol want?
I know. It's not even about like what I want. That is a really, really hard subject to talk about. Being able to
imagine how Carol feels.
Well, yeah. Not just for her, but like real life now.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. Sure.
Being able to relax and sleep late and like I have things to do.
Let me put on my Bridget clothes. I'm going to put on my Bridget onesie right now. Well, isn't that what trauma is all about?
What,
it is though.
Staying distracted?
It's a post-traumatic stress disorder. You can't sit still. You can't act in the world without fighting a battle.
Yeah.
You just can't be a normal person.
No. I can't just sit and be, because maybe 10 minutes at most I'll get before I have to get up and do something. And I feel like Carol is in that same mindset. The last time she stepped back and really relaxed, she went to the cabin outside of the kingdom for like a whole season and just like retreated into herself.
She was still going through it though.
Yeah.
Well, there's a better example though. Do you remember that episode? It was one of the 10C episodes. It was after Diverged. What was it called? Where she was chasing the rat?
No, that was Diverged. Where she was chasing the rat. Yeah, where she was chasing the rat. Yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes.
See, that's the thing.
Because she's going through it.
It was the most hated Walking Dead.
I don't even care, because my opinion is my opinion. It is one of it's not my favorite. It is one of my favorite episodes. And I think people probably didn't like it because of how real it was. Maybe because it made people feel something. We saw her going through this. And for me,
I would say it made people feel uncomfortable.
It did. And it should have. It was supposed to make you feel uncomfortable because she was going through something real. This was her finally recognizing everything she had gone through. And a lot of people don't do that for themselves.
It's kind of like watching Sarah cry. Sometimes people just turn off when they see people really suffering and going through it. This is what I'm saying, is that this episode gives that episode a lot more relevance. Mm-hmm. That's really what it is. Mm-hmm. This whole second season, in a weird sense, that episode is the kernel, and they re-reference each other because, hey, you thought this episode sucked? Well, we're building a whole second season based on that episode to kind of give it a little bit more justice and flesh that out a little bit more. This is what that looks like on a grander scale. And we're going to address this. We're going to go through it. Carol's going to go on a journey. I hope we go further with this. I like that Carol is seeing mirrors of herself in other people. Remy, Janae, Ash. I hope Ash is okay. God damn it, please Ash be okay. It would be poetic that he isn't okay.
I think he's all right. I think it's important that Carol went through all of this. I think everybody would agree with that. It's important to go through this trauma and process it, because you're going to be better for it on the other side, recognizing all of these things. And now she can recognize that in other people, like the situation with Remy. She didn't freak out. If anything, I think we both agree she was a little bit proud of how he handled the situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like her little moment that Michonne had. Remember when she had that kind of sliding doors episode on The Walking Dead season 10?
Michonne?
Where she went to the past and didn't save Andrea, and she had her whole alternate history. Yeah. Knowing that she would do the same thing again, right? And not stray from her path. And then for him to
I made the right choice, and it was validated.
And yet she still caroled her. Yeah, there you go. She got more than what she bargained for when she helped him out. And it's interesting to see that maybe having manipulated Ash and having helped Remy, it worked the opposite way. Remy gave her up. Ash just continues to help her even after being manipulated. I just wonder if that will change her. Should it change her? I just don't know. Again, we want her to be her Carol self because us, and we like that. Mm-hmm. But another part of me is like, what does it have to take to integrate all these parts of her and not be such an asshole sometimes? Like, does she have to be, and we're gonna cheer it on all the time? But I don't know. I like her. I really do. I just want her to have a life that isn't framed by suffering and having to do things to get what she wants. We'll move on. I see your upset face.
I don't know what that would look like. It makes me uncomfortable to think about it.
that maybe that's season 3. Maybe that's the rest of the season.
I think
Because
season
again,
3
I
will be
wanna
like
see-
getting back, right?
I want
Right?
to see more cool stuff, kind of like we saw in the first episode with the barn. I want to see
Mhm.
more of that.
Mhm.
I just want to see some of these points that she's seeing in Janae and Remy hit hard. I want
Yeah.
to see it hit hard. Listen, as much as I don't want to see her suffering, I want to see some of the things inside her break so that she can become a stronger person, like tempered steel. You have to keep whacking it to make it stronger.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't want to see her suffer, but I know what you mean. I want to watch her transform and become stronger. I want to see her go through what's necessary to become maybe the best version of herself.
Or at least as close as she's going to be able to
Mhm.
get. I'm not asking for the world here. I may be asking for the world when it comes to Daryl being happy for once,
Yeah, that's too much. I
but I'll
think you're
settle
asking too
for
much.
growth from Carol. Like
I
just
mean,
some
what-
significant steps forward to closure.
What is happy anyway in an apocalypse? Waking up, just being alive. And some days it's like, eh.
Yep.
Some days you feel like going
Yeah.
comic book Carol, just walking face first into a walker.
Which, by the way, I started reading the comic book just as a big announcement.
Really?
I started reading the
That's exciting.
Alan and all that.
How far did you get?
Tyrese all the way from the beginning. What?
Wow. How far did you get?
I got to the prison. I'm about midway through the prison.
Okay, all right.
Basically,
Do
I'm
you-
not very far at
Are
all.
you just like reading them
basically.
online, or where are you getting your?
No, I have like volumes 1 through 4. I think it's
Oh, you got
volumes
the
1 through
volumes.
4.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I picked them up off the street years ago
Okay.
when I was living in my last apartment.
I'm
And,
actually missing volumes 1 through 5.
I'll give them to you. Yeah, sure. Why
Oh
not?
my gosh. I think I have.
And,
I think
after
I
I'm
have
done
all
with
the
them.
other ones. I've got all the compendiums. I have almost all the volumes, and I have maybe,
Compendiums are just things of volumes, right?
Yeah, they're all just
Yeah,
different
okay.
variations. And then I have maybe less than half the single issues.
Oh, okay. Just so you know, we kind of go into this for at least another 10 minutes, talking about the comic books, the differences between the show and the comic, and a whole lot more. And even a couple of ideas that we may have in the future when it comes to new episode ideas. And we want to know what you think. And in order to do that, all you need to do is tip us on Ko-fi or join a membership tier on either Ko-fi or Patreon. Links in the description of both the YouTube video and the podcast episode. So we did sort of touch upon the flood, and the flood is what happened in Noah's time about people being awful, knowing it's going to happen, saving who you can, saving humanity. It's weird that Losang also says that faith and hope are oxygen and water, but maybe the opposite is true. Maybe too much faith is the flood, right? If it's oxygen and water, here's too much water and you're going to drown. So I thought that was an interesting little mirror for that little piece. But another kind of interesting note is that the flood is what they call zombies, quote unquote, because they're not like real zombies. They're kind of like undead creatures that rise up and become something else in Halo. And I feel like that's the one word the Walking Dead will never be able to use, calling the undead the flood.
The flood.
Yeah, so like it's in their
Huh.
own way using another word for walkers, but they'll never be able to. Like, how do you call a undead creature the flood?
Yeah.
You can't. So like maybe it's their way of saying, hey, Halo, hey, the flood, hey?
It's something.
The theme of being overlooked or like not being seen is something that does come up. Laurent, Janae, Carol. The painting itself is one that was actually also overlooked. Now, the painting I'm talking about is not Mona Lisa. It's the scene of the flood. It's called Une scène du déluge, which means a scene of the flood, a depiction of the flood. And this was done by Guy Rodet. It was also overlooked by the critics of the time because basically people wanted something that was uplifting. All they could see was they were overwhelmed with the despair in seeing humanity falter. You had this man who was carrying an old man and trying to lift up, but failing to almost, like he's gripping with his all his strength for the life of him to lift up this mother and this child at her breast. And there's a kid on the woman's leg, just trying to lift up. There's this flood everywhere. So people were like, this is overwhelmingly depressing. Like, this is not. And also critics saying, like, why is it focused in on the people when the flood is this vastness of water that is not being shown? And so the defenders of it also said that in defense of this, this is the struggle of humanity. It's actually in a way, in its own way, uplifting. This is who we are in the face of all suffering. We're struggling to keep our humanity, who we are as a people. The man trying to hold these things together, trying to keep the elderly alive. When you could do like a Eskimo funeral, put him on an ice floe and get rid of him. The mother, the bearer of life and the nurturing of children. F the kids in the apocalypse.
Not all
This
of
is
them,
what
just
it's all
the dumb
about.
ones.
Right, just the dumb ones can grow up to have education, contribute. Anyway, I know they cry a lot, but still, it's like the whole struggle of keeping all of that together in this world, our world, the real world. If people did not take an earnest look at this thing, they wouldn't take that away from looking at it. So this too was overlooked, just like Janae, just like Carol. There are many scenes of apocalypse in this museum that were also overlooked, just like the Mona Lisa. But she was there the whole time looking at all these things and taking that onto herself. And she sees herself in that painting. She sees herself as the defender of humanity, of the thing that will bring it back. It's not God. God gave us the flood. It's her. Okay, we'll touch on this. It'll piss everybody off, including you. Everybody's sad about Sylvie and everybody's crying. Whatever. I don't know how I feel, but it's sad. And then we quickly move on. And right before the scene ends, what does Losang say?
I don't remember.
I'm glad you blocked it out because he says her faith was weak.
Oh, right after. Yes. Okay. I was thinking after Walker Sylvie was put down. Okay.
Oh, no. I'm saying she falls off the ramparts.
Her faith was weak. Yeah.
Everybody's crying. He goes, her faith was weak.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the second fall from grace for me. When he said, Daryl, you're beyond hope. You're beyond my reach. That was the third fall from grace for me. You get 3 chances, Losang. You're not evil. You're
wasted
just
them all.
He's a
Misguided.
bad person.
He's just misguided.
You're a bad person. It's too much.
I think Jacinta's a bad person. I think Losang is trying. I think his intentions are in the right spot.
Yeah, but you can
But
only
Jacinta, she's a bad person.
I feel like I'm quoting you when I say this, is that you can only blame Losang up to a point, and then after a while, he's been making choices. He made one too many bad ones.
It's funny
right?
how I can defend Losang,
this
but
would
not
be a you
Madison.
answer.
I know.
No, but that's fine. I'm comfortable with your comparison. You can only make
Making bad decisions. Yeah.
Oh boy. And you know what?
Yeah.
You could say the same thing about Carol. You can only make so many bad decisions. This is like season 10 conversation all over again. Before at some point you're like, am I the bad person? But I'll say this, that is good imagery. That is good parallelism. Like what makes this person good and what makes this person bad?
Yeah.
You could easily say it's the people that let us live to make it up. Carol, Daryl.
I think it's pretty easy. If we're comparing Losang and Jacinta, for me, the difference is pretty clear. Jacinta is actively trying to kill Daryl, where Losang is just like, he's not trying to kill anyone. Like, he truly believes Laurent is going to survive this ceremony. That's why I feel like his heart's in the right place. He's wrong.
Let's even examine
wrong.
Let's examine Losang's decision to distract Daryl. It's a little naive, isn't it? If you think about it. To think that he's going to trust these people to distract him long enough, because he sent people with him to do this thing. How do you expect that they're going to distract him long enough to keep him away to do the ceremony? If you
Maybe
really
it was supposed to be like a whole day-long thing. We didn't get a lot of information.
Sure, but I'm just thinking to myself, if Daryl gets wise and doubles back, what do you think they're going to do to distract them further? It's going to end in somebody getting killed. Let's put it that way. Wasn't
it the entire next day that they did the ceremony, or was it the same day that Sylvie found? It was the next day because they brought her breakfast.
It was breakfast.
Do you think it was supposed to be the same day and then Sylvie sort of derailed things and so they had to push it another day? Because otherwise it doesn't make sense to send them on this mission if we don't know how long that mission was supposed to take.
I think it was supposed to take them another whole day to get back, and in the time that they would do it, they would actually do the ceremony. It would be done with. Sylvie falling off the ramparts derailed it a little bit for longer. So but then they have a test subject. Anyway. Gross. Yeah. But either way, I'm not saying it would have ended up the same way, but I'm just saying somebody would have gotten at least hurt from his crew. Yeah. Having tried to F with Daryl, basically.
Agreed.
So anyway, one more thing. I know I'm pulling this BS on you right now. It's a point of contention. She says to Janae, she says, I came as a tourist 13 years ago and I got stuck. Okay. Now, I'm acknowledging even in my notes that she could have come a little earlier, and maybe the fall only happened 11 years ago. But I'm going to say this much. I don't know how many people go 2 years backpacking in France. It's not, as a tourist, it's all but confirming about 13 years is when the fall happened. Which basically they backtrack on in the first season, because the first season they really screwed things up.
Of Daryl?
They said 10 years in the first season of Walking to Daryl Dixon. That's what you meant when you said Daryl, right?
Yeah.
They said 10 years ago, Laurent's 10. It's 10 years ago. Like, I don't think so.
I don't think Laurent's
So they're
10.
fixing it.
He's not 10.
They're fixing the Walking Dead Daryl Dixon when they said 10 years ago. It's not 10 years ago. This is 13 years later.
Okay,
they're listening to us, Rachel.
Well, that's good. Maybe I missed that. I don't remember anybody specifically saying 10 years.
It's in the first episode. They even reference it. They reference it a couple times.
Yeah, they definitely would have been wrong.
Season.
They absolutely would have been wrong because the end of Walking Dead was 12 years and Daryl left.
Yeah, at least
after that.
And then exactly. Yeah. There you go.
So
we went through it with the ones who live. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went through it with the ones who live as well, and we're like, yes, 13 years about roughly.
Yep, 12,
There's
13.
Like 1 year after time?
Nobody knows how much time has actually passed, but
it's not 10, but it's more than 10. Them telling us in the first season.
10 years.
Oh, 10 years out the guys, you screwed up the Walking Dead universe. What? You're wrong.
You're wrong.
And now they're fixing it here with Carol 13 years later, tourist, whatever.
Good job.
Which you can say, okay, she's there for a couple months and maybe it's 12 something years. 12 years, 8 months, 13 days. Anyway, I'd feel remiss if I didn't just mention that. We don't care about the exact, we just care what it definitely isn't. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because we're done with the timelines. We've had episodes about it, and it wastes so much time. Yep. All we know is what it isn't, and that's it. So if you like what you heard, head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead, 5 stars and a Mona Lisa. There is an emoji with a painting. Is all we need to know that you love us. Tell us what you liked. Yeah. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what we might have missed. And we might have missed a couple of things, but I think we got into it. We animated about some things. I almost upset Rachel several times in this podcast. Tell us after every episode. It really helps us out. And it also helps you communicate with us. You can leave a rating, a review with words that we will read on the next podcast, or we will post on social media, or even if it's something bad, we'll say it out loud because it's kind of funny. But if you really like what you've heard, and I will mention it again, we are running out of money and we could really use a little generosity, be it a tip on ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or a membership tier on either Ko-fi or Patreon. That's patreon.com/squawkingdead. When you join us on our journey of support, we give back. You can see a list of perks on both our pages. They're very, very finely spelled out. And we want to get your feedback. We want to know if we could be including things in those tiers that you could benefit from. We want to make this worth your while because we are doing this for you. We need your help here. Those of you who think you're members, think again. Head over to Ko-fi and Patreon. Adjust your pledge at ko-fi.com/account or Patreon. It's fairly easy. Just head there, see if you're still there. I think you are. Ryan, he's the only one on Patreon. But those of you who are joined a membership tier on Ko-fi, adjust your pledges. And or if you see that you aren't pledging, join a tier today. It's ko-fi.com/squawkingdead/tiers. Pick your poison. Anyone will do. Starting off with the Walkers tier, you have access to our Discord forever. Even if you fall out of that tier, you'll still be on our Discord. Great M Survivors tier members get a free classic t-shirt upon signing up, as well as 50% off in the merch store and the ability to join us with your face camera mic on our Jackbox Games live streams. If you happen to join the Survivors and Great M tier, you can show up with your face mouth mic on our episode breakdowns. And if you happen to join the Great M tier, the producer tier, you can join our core channel on our Discord server, which is where we have our private conversations.
Ooh, that's a scary place to be.
Where it's a very vulnerable place to be. You get to peer into our souls and then also our finances and how terrible we are at them. I blame me. But it's all in an effort to get more visibility on this podcast, to get us out there more often, to see you in person, to get promotional materials like stickers and stuff like that. It really has been very helpful. But at this point, we're running out of options. If you think you're a member, you're really not. You are contributing, but you're not contributing at the level you should be contributing. And some of you are recognized, some of you aren't. But as usual, seeing your name in the credits at the end of every video, some of you are contributing, not contributing enough for it to show up on screen, as well as at the end of the podcast episodes. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt. We'll see you real soon. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you're enjoying this. Let us know in the comments. Like this video, if it is a video that you're listening to us on. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.